That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage.
It's Division I football! Go play intramurals, brother. Go play intramurals.
But, you know, I am going to try, and there will be some people inconvenienced. And if it happens to be their fat little girlfriends, too bad.
Twitter, radio.
Yeah, I'd give a rat's ass about Twitter.
All right. Welcome on back to the Jake and Bake Show. It is we're heading into week 3 of the NFL. So if that's your scale for how we do things, we got a special guest this week. Before we get to that, be sure to follow us, like us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast at the Jake and Bake Show or at Jake and Bake Show. Be sure to follow me and Jake on Twitter at the Bake is here for myself and at Jake Cart for Jake, and for our guest at Josh_Stevens13. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. And Josh is our guest this week. So thanks for coming on, Josh. Obviously, it kind of works out. You are West Virginia, Jake's Oklahoma State, and you guys will be playing this weekend. But before we get into that, Jake, last weekend, you got anything to say?
I mean, you know, it's 2020, so it's craziness is going on. I mean, the thing is our defense played the way I thought we would play. Like, we played really well. We never let them get a third down conversion. Like, it's Tulsa, and I know people are going to rag on Tulsa. Tulsa's not a complete garbage team. They're nowhere talent-wise near us. But, you know, I think, you know, what's surprising is throughout the week that's developed is not a lot of people have really said, but Casey Dunn is our offensive coordinator now. And this is his first time ever calling plays. And, you know, it's weird for a wide receivers coach, because that's where he came from, is wide receivers, is to call that many run plays. It kind of is I think he's kind of in a weird headspace of he's trying to call too many runs and setting up things. And, I mean, Spencer Sanders going down in the first quarter or right at the end of the first quarter. And then Ethan Bullock, oh, my gosh.
Dude, he is all right. So I actually got to go to the game courtesy of you. And the atmosphere in Boone Pickens when he was playing was just abysmal. It was trash. I mean, there was no energy. There was no vibe. There was no progression or success from the Oklahoma State offense. I mean, that line is terrible. You guys have no line. And the fact that you had no line and no quarterback, you just couldn't get anything done. You got to rely on Chuba. Although LD Brown did have a decent game, he had a few big runs called back. But as soon as Shane Illingworth came in, the whole thing changed. Everything changed right there. You know?
Yeah, Shane's a baller. I mean, dude, like I watched game tape on him when he was coming in as a true freshman. I mean, he played in California, he threw for 40 touchdowns and only 2 picks in his senior year. Like, you know, he's got the potential to be great. Like, I think Shane is definitely the future. I mean, the hard question now is, you know, Spence is supposed to be our guy. He got a minor ankle injury. He was in a boot until Tuesday. So yesterday was his first day off, and they're real secretive. They don't want to, you know, give West Virginia any like, oh, well, you know, he's not going to play. It's always going to be a game time decision if Spence is going to play or not. But I have a feeling that Shane should probably start the game. He should probably be the one taking the lead. And
is that for the season or?
Yeah.
So are you done? Are you done with Spencer Sanders? Really? Are you done with him?
I'm not done
it
with
sounds like
Sanders.
it. It sounds like Josh. Doesn't it sound like he's done with Spencer Sanders?
It kind of sounds like it. He was hurt last year, and then again he's hurt this year already in week 1. But I think Spencer Sanders is a difference maker for Oklahoma State. Just as you saw, they moved the ball up and down the field the first possession very well, and then all of a sudden the backup came in and Tulsa then stacked the box to stop Hubbard, and it's almost like they didn't even try to get the ball outside of Tylan Wallace at all, it felt like.
Well, yeah, they didn't even go to him until I think the second half. I didn't even notice it until Jake, you had texted me and was like, they haven't used Wallace once. Like they haven't
Yeah.
went to him once. But then as soon as Shane Illingworth comes in, his first few passes are to Tylan Wallace, jump balls basically. That Tylan's the best. Tylan Wallace is probably the best in the game at the collegiate level, at least, of going up and getting that ball and coming down with it. I mean, he's probably one of the best in the game for it.
Yeah, I mean,
and so he just puts like you said, he puts a little air under it and just says, "Hey, go up and get it," and I got faith you'll come down with it.
Yeah, I mean, his nickname is King of Contested Catches. I mean, right, you saw that on the sideline is Shane went to the sideline, went to Tylan and said, "Hey, dude, like you're playing one-on-one, man. I'm just going to throw it up. Just go make a play."
Josh, what were you about to say?
I was going to say Tylan Wallace is, in my opinion, a top 3 jump ball receiver. You up there with Jamar Chase and Justin Ross, and those two aren't playing this year. So you have the best jump ball receiver in the game. Give him a chance. And when you didn't give him a chance the entire first half, it's kind of like, what are you doing? So that was good to see, at least in the second half. I didn't watch much after that first half. It was tough to watch because it was just.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. I mean, it was basically 3 and outs on both sides of the ball with maybe a couple first downs here and there. But I mean, Jake, you guys got to fix things, or just start off with, like you said, start Shane Illingworth, because West Virginia is not Tulsa. I mean, you guys are gonna have some issues. Josh, I'm gonna let you go in on West Virginia. I actually haven't watched them much. I think they've only played one game, right? Only one game so far.
And so Kentucky,
there's not much to say on, like, not much to speak on in terms of like my end. You probably know a little bit more just because you're in and around it. But we'll get to that in a second. Jake, go ahead.
Well, I think the thing with Oklahoma State and everything is like, it's just like clockwork. If we have a good quarterback, we win 10 games every time. It's Clint Shelf, it's Mason Rudolph, it's Brandon Whedon, it's whatever. If we have a good quarterback, can throw downfield, we've won 10 games year in, year out, done it before. So, I mean, I think the thing is with Shane is if he turns out to be a good quarterback, we'll be a really good team. I think Spencer Sanders is the thing. He's going to struggle to throw downfield. Like, that's just one of those things as growing pains of he might maybe one day develop into a passer. That's great. But I mean, the difference maker of Shane or Spencer is, he takes a lot of defensive looks off of Chuba. Is he runs that quarterback read option and kind of hits the outside. And so then defense kind of has to move over and not quite focus so hard on Chuba.
But see, that's for Spencer Sanders. And yeah, that's probably his best, maybe not his best attribute, but one of the best things about him is he is elusive and he can't get out of the pocket, which, defensives you have to you almost have to respect it until he starts not making passes. Then you don't have to respect it one bit. But the thing with Shane Illingworth is he was very poised in the pocket. And when he did have to scramble, yeah, there's a couple checkdowns he missed. But I mean, for the most part, when he scrambled, he was pretty on point with his decision making in terms of being his first game.
Real simple. I mean, Ethan Bullock never threw the ball away once. Shane threw the ball away. That's all you need to know. I mean, if you get someone, especially that's a true freshman, to be able to throw the ball away when you need to throw the ball away, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, but it's also, like I said, he was very poised in the pocket, and the big plays he did make, they brought energy. It just hit Shane Illingworth coming in. I think I'm going to join your team, Jake, and say that I'm on the Spencer Sanders as the backup train. You started that narrative. I'm going to support you with that narrative.
I don't know if I started that narrative.
No, I mean, you pretty much said it, so we're just going to go with it. But Josh, let's move on. Jake, you had your little shot.
Oklahoma State.
Let's hear about West Virginia. What's going on with them, and what do you expect in this upcoming week against Oklahoma State?
Well, honestly, it's hard to tell. We had 11 players suspended for our first game, undisclosed reasons. I have no idea what they were. But when you look at the defense honestly played really well again. It's Eastern Kentucky, but the main thing I looked at was our secondary was much improved. We actually could stay with receivers, which is something we haven't done in years. And our defensive line looks like one of the better defensive lines in the country, with the Stills brothers and Darius being the preseason Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Like, that is what I think is going to give Oklahoma State trouble. If they struggle to run the ball against Tulsa, good luck running the ball against the Stills brothers. They just wreak havoc. They have for the last 2 years when they played together. Linebacker wise, West Virginia, it's decent, but
Who's your guys' quarterback?
Jarrett Dagey.
That sounds like a quarterback's name.
He
That sounds
played
like a
well
quarterback
last
name.
year. We started with Austin Kendall last year. We started 3-1, and then I think we lost like our next 5 or 6 games, and then we finally put Dagey in the second half of Texas Tech and never really looked back. He started against Oklahoma State last year. We lost, I think it was 20-13 or 23-13, something like that. So it was a close game in Morgantown, but West Virginia historically struggles against Oklahoma State. If you remember the year with Will Grier going to Boone Pickens and being up by like 14, 20 points, and then Taylor Cornelius, of all the quarterbacks, bringing them all the way back, ruining our chances.
You just got Jake
playoffs.
hard as fuck.
Yeah.
Old corn dog, dude. Corn dog. I mean, I don't know what corn dog's deal was. It's kind of almost like our basketball team of the inconsistency. Is corn dog had some talent. He could throw the ball. But he was so inconsistent. We would go and play Kansas and he would just be absolutely awful. Like he would throw 5-yard passes in the dirt, and then it was like top 25 team. Like, all right, let's do this. And like he would just turned it on and somehow, some way made it happen. Like that year was one of the wildest years I've ever been a part of in Oklahoma State, because we lost to everyone bad and beat everyone good.
You guys went into that game against, I think you were 5-4. You were fighting for bowl eligibility, and then we come out in the first half and absolutely step on you, just squish you to the ground. I thought the game was over, and then all of a sudden you have an 8-1 team just completely fall apart.
Yeah,
it was terrible. It was like Cornelius couldn't miss. We stopped doing everything that we did in the first half. We stopped, and it's a new coaching staff now, so I'm hoping that's a little bit different.
Yeah, because you guys were on offense. You guys were really solid. It was, I think your running back was Petaway or. Something.
Oh, we had multiple that year. We had Martell Petaway, Letty Brown, Kennedy McCoy. You had David Sills and Gary Jennings as a receiver. Our offense was potent, and then all of a sudden, I think we scored like 10 or 17 points the second half after putting up like 30 in the first. It was terrible.
I will say, throw of the year was Will Grier in Austin to Gary Jennings. That toe tap in the back of the end zone was throw of the year, hands down. I don't care what anybody says. That was time.
You're bringing back memories as I get chills running down my body after that one.
You were just like Jake about 30 or 2 minutes ago when you said something about Taylor Cornelius.
I was in my living room watching that game. I thought all hope was lost when Texas took that lead. And then I just see Will Grier drop an absolute dime to Gary Jennings, and I was like, oh. And then when we decided to go for 2, I literally just walked outside. I couldn't even watch it.
So moving on, we're going to stick in college football, but moving on a little bit further. Last week, Jake, who did you have in college football last week? While you get that pulled up, I'll say mine. I had 14 UCF at -7.5, and I had Duke -5.5. I just want to say real quick, hey, Duke, fuck you. I'm never going to vote. I'm never going to root for you again. I'm never going to bet on you again. I mean, they were 20 point or 5.5 point favorites, and they lost by 20 points. They lost by 20 points to Boston College. Yeah, I mean, they just had a terrible game. I only caught highlights, or I guess they weren't any highlights of Duke because they didn't have any. But that's terrible. I mean, you're 5.5 point favorite and you lose by 20 points. And then real quick, that Navy Tulane game. Navy was down like 24 points in the first half. They come back in the second half, 16 points in the third quarter, 11 points in the fourth for 27 unanswered points to win that game against Tulane. I don't know where they pulled it out of, because at halftime I was like, just like when I got out of the Navy, I was done with them. And they pulled it out. They came back. They surprised me. I've never had the Navy surprise me before. Well, not in a good way, at least. Not in a good way.
That game was wild. Navy's first game they played horrible. And then in the first half, they played the exact same horrible. And then a light bulb went off at halftime. I don't know what happened. And then they just started rolling.
No idea what it was. But, Jake, what were your picks from last week real quick?
I got
Sorry, Josh. I'll let you go.
I got Appalachian State versus Marshall, and App State. That game was abysmal. App State just handed them that game. I mean, bro, they threw the tight end, ran a little stick and nod route, was running to the end zone, got caught from behind, ball popped out, touchback, gave it to Marshall. I mean, they had like 3 or 4 turnovers that were just inexcusable. Like, it was only a 4-point spread, and I think Marshall ended up winning by 13, and App State could have won that game by like 40. It was like insane.
What was the spread on it? You had App State
4.5.
4.5. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got Miami was plus 2.5 versus Louisville, and then they kicked the crap out of them. And it's
that was a 13-point game.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, dude, and I knew that game was going to be heated. Like, I knew it was like game
Is
day and all
Miami
this
back?
stuff. I mean, not really. It's what in my head, what I thought is gangster squad versus gangster squad. Like, which gangsters are gonna? It's almost like the Bloods versus the Crips.
Miami gets a new
gonna
like
win?
$100,000 chain every year, and they got a new one, and it's pretty baller. It's pretty baller. Josh, what were you going to say about Navy? The Navy game, though, real quick.
Well, I was just gonna say, when Navy played BYU, they hadn't tackled yet, and I'll tell you what, when the first half of that Tulane game looks like they didn't tackle that entire week.
Yeah,
still. Like, you just had Tulane running right through them, and then all of a sudden, the second half, it looks like the best tacklers in the world. They're
eating healthy right now. The Navy guys are eating healthy, so they're not putting on the weight. We'll just attribute it to that. But yeah, so Josh, did you have any picks that you had last week? I know you weren't on the show, so anyone listening or watching might not know what your picks were. But did you have any picks that were surprising? Obviously, that Oklahoma State over did not hit. Yeah. It didn't even come close. I think it was over 49.5 or over 48.5, and I think the total was 20.
All right, calm down. Yeah. All right, we get it.
Well, much like you said, you aren't the biggest fan of Navy. They can go right off. I had money on Tulane, and 24-point lead at halftime with 5 minutes left in the game. Think I got it handed to me, right? Next thing I know, gone. I did have 2 upset picks. I did have Marshall beating Appalachian State. I have to represent the state of West Virginia with that one. And then Louisiana Tech to beat Southern Miss. Southern Miss just looked terrible week 1, so I had Louisiana Tech. Those are really the only things I played last week.
So we'll get into what our picks are at the end of the show, but let's talk a little bit of the upcoming games this weekend, Jake. Obviously, you two are playing West Virginia and Oklahoma State, but there's SEC starts this weekend. So was there any games that stuck out to you in the SEC? But in the Big 12, we got Kansas State, Oklahoma, which we don't even know if it's going to happen, and it's Thursday right now, so it's still up in the air. In the Big 12, they got also who else plays? Iowa State, TCU, and that game's actually at Iowa State minus 2.5, which was interesting. I almost wanted to take that, but it's too. You don't fucking know. Iowa State lost to who was it? Louisiana. So that's too risky. But yeah, go into any games that might have stuck out to you, Jake. I know you've been paying attention to.
Most games are super sketchy. SEC is kind of like we haven't seen any of them play, so we have no idea. I mean, like Kentucky's ranked 23. Like they lost half their team. I have no idea how they got that ranking or how they're that high. And it's kind of all over the place. I will say, though, about the K-State game is kind of crazy, is I heard that they were using tight ends as linemen because so many linemen were out. So, like, I
had to do that in middle school, and that's why I stopped playing football, was because the coach used me as a lineman, even though I should have been like 100-pound wide receiver or whatever it was, 110-pound wide receiver. And I was going up against in the trenches, and it just didn't work out. And I was like, I'll stick to hockey or something.
Yeah, it's never going to work. I mean, the good thing is they both have a same bye week somewhere in the middle of October. So that game, if it does get postponed, they'll probably both reschedule on their bye week, and it'll kind of work out for them on that. But
real quick on the bye week stuff, on my other show, the sports show for U Central Radio 99.3 in Edmond, for that show with my buddy Preston, we had talked. He presented a question to me about the Big Ten and how they're only doing an 8-week season with no buys. You can't you cancel a game.
Yeah, you're done.
You might not make that up because their championship weekend for the Big Ten is the weekend before the college football playoff committee comes out with the college football playoff rankings or the final ones for the set playoff. So you miss a game, and I pose the hypothetical, which I hope doesn't bring the Baker reverse jinx. But what if Oklahoma or what if Ohio State, Penn State week 2 gets canceled? That's a big game. That's probably the biggest game of the year, in terms of Big Ten play.
Yeah. I mean,
what do you do? What do you do? So it's going to be, they can't fuck around. They have to play the games that they schedule. And if they don't, I'm saying they have to, like, in football terms, but if they aren't able to, medically speaking, or because they can't field enough players, well, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs,
Yeah. They put themselves in a real tough position because
real tough.
I think no matter what happens, it's those small teams that are gonna, I mean, the hardest part is
Rutgers, Maryland.
Those small teams that end up losing
Wisconsin.
games, and you're sitting there, whatever, 2-2 or 3-3 or 0-3 or whatever. You're sitting there losing a bunch of games. And now coach is telling you, oh, you can't go out and party. You have to stay in. You have to take this serious. And it's hard for them to stay serious and so engaged when you're having a bad year. And like, that's what's, I think, is going to bring it down is all those small schools that aren't going to care. They're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Oklahoma and Kansas State this weekend. And I'm not saying this is exactly the reason, but like Kansas State probably isn't going to have a great year this year, and they might not even be able to play this weekend. I'm not saying it's because players are going out and partying or anything, but that could be an issue with them. They could be like, I mean, what if they were to play against Oklahoma? They just lost to, I think it was Coastal Carolina or something like that, right?
Louisiana. Cajun.
Yeah, okay. And so they just lost to them. They might get spanked by OU.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Arkansas State.
Yes. Arkansas State. Okay.
Louisiana beat Iowa State.
Yeah, I said that earlier. But I didn't know if that was right or not. But yeah, so they could get spanked by OU and then really get demoralized. I mean, get demoralized.
You lose one more game, and I mean, basically out. Like
you're basically out. Yeah.
And let's be realistic. Them playing Oklahoma, they're probably going to lose by 20 or 30, if not more than that. I mean, if you're losing to Arkansas State, you're then going to play Oklahoma, whose offense, I get that Oklahoma didn't play world beaters, but it looks like it hasn't stopped, just like Lincoln Riley's offense every year. Kansas State is going to probably.
All right, Josh, hang on. I want you to go in on Oklahoma's offense real quick. What do you think of them? What do you think of Spencer Rattler?
Again, it's hard to tell because they didn't didn't play world beaters last week when they played. Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks. 2 weeks ago.
But Rattler looked good. I mean, again, he's playing a trash secondary. Their offensive line's going to dominate. But the offensive line of Oklahoma is really good. They have one of the best interior offensive linemen in Creed Humphrey. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman in the country. They got Charleston Rambo, who is stepping up to take CD Lamb's spot, just like CD Lamb stepped up to take Marquise Brown's, Hollywood Brown's spot. It's like rinse and repeat every year for them. I don't think that they're all. I think it'll be slightly worse because they don't have that stud number 2. They have Jaden Hazelwood as their number 2 receiver, who I think is going to be a stud in the future. Just he needs more time to develop, but I think their offense is still going to be a top 5 offense in the country, and I think that they're going to just absolutely destroy Kansas State.
Do you think they are and Jake, I don't want your take. I know what it is. Do you think they are a college football playoff contender, if not a national championship contender?
I think that they're a contender. I don't think that they will ever even come close to winning it. They don't play defense. Like that welcome to the Big 12, where we have some of the best offenses in the country, but we're going to give up 42.
And that's why I like the Ohio State and the Big Ten, because Ohio State can play offense and defense. So we're like the best team in the nation. We just gotta get fucking playing, and hopefully the Big Ten lets us play the full 8-game season. Hopefully we're able to get that done, because if Ohio State goes 8-0, you almost gotta bet your money that they'll be in the playoffs. Even if they're 8, if they play all 8 games and they win all 8, they're gonna be in the playoffs. You almost can guarantee that.
Yeah, it'll be an AP number 2 or whatever. Like,
yeah, I mean, they missed 4 games, but all right, they missed playing Oregon, which huge game. But then who did they miss? I don't even know what their schedule was supposed to be, but it's probably two other trash teams or 3 other trash teams. So I mean, you're still playing some top tier teams in the Big Ten in Penn State, Wisconsin. And that's actually about it. That's all I'm gonna say.
The one problem I will say is the slander on the Big 12 is I have to stick up a little bit for the Big 12. Yes, we played terrible, and there's no excuse of what occurred.
I know what you're about to say.
All those conferences didn't play other teams. You know, you guys don't even have a chance to lose in non-conference games. Like, you're not going to play whatever, you know. So, I mean, they can say all that stuff, and, you know.
I actually thought you were about to say something else.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, what I was going to say is, like, I heard all these SEC fans, like.
There we go.
Yeah, watch the Oklahoma State game and say, like, oh, like, look how bad Oklahoma State is, like, all this stuff. And I was like, we played great defense and terrible offense. I was like, that's what the SEC is. I was like, that's what the SEC was 5 years ago, and their entire history was they were a run team that never had good quarterbacks, that can't pass the ball, that played great defense. I was like, we exactly played your style of ball, and you still call us bad.
So
like,
do you think Oklahoma State is the best SEC team in the Big 12?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's hard to say.
Is Oklahoma State the best SEC team in the Big 12, Jake? Yes or no?
I would say no.
Wow. That's so surprising. I thought you would say yes. I was just say yes with you.
Who would you say? Because I would agree. I think there's one team that's better than them. That plays more. I like SEC.
Texas would be my pick. I think Texas plays very similar to SEC ball. They have huge big boys. They're slow and methodical. They like to ground and pound people out, and they're very much an SEC team. And I think that's why Texas has always had a lot of success when they play SEC teams, like the year that they played Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
Or last year when they played LSU, and they actually were LSU's probably toughest team.
Yeah, toughest game LSU played all year. And it's because Texas has those big boys. Like, you know, to find a 6 foot, 185 pound male in America is very easy. To find a 330 pound guy is kind of hard.
That can run like a 5'1" or whatever they run, 4'8",
athletic and in shape. Like it's those big boys are few and far between. So that's where those blue bloods really shine, is they get a lot of those big boys, and they got size and depth, and that's why they always, every year, the Red River game is always good, because they just match up size wise so well.
Josh, what were you about to say? Who did you think would be the best SEC team in the Big 12?
See, I don't know if they would be the best team. Like you said, Texas obviously would perform better in the SEC than the team I would take. I would honestly say Iowa State. They're a very good defense. They've historically run the ball since David Montgomery. Now they got Breece Hall. They have Brock Purdy's a good quarterback, but then look outside. He doesn't really have those weapons. So they're a run-first team that plays good defense.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be the I'm gonna say it's Oklahoma State. I'm gonna be the real Oklahoma State fan on the show. Jake, you've always been known as a very vague, fake Oklahoma State fan. So I'll be the fan for Oklahoma State. They're little brother to me. I'll stand up for them. Oklahoma State's the best SEC team in the Big 12. But let's move on. We'll get out of college football. We got a great weekend coming up, and we'll come back to college football with our picks at the towards the end of the show. So keep watching, keep listening. Let's get into the NFL. Last weekend there was some interesting games. You know, what's the saying, Jake? You or Josh, if you know it, what's the saying? The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Is that the saying, or is that a saying? If it's not, it's a saying now. I created it. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The Atlanta Falcons, the more they try to change, the more they stay the same. I mean, their brand is losing when they are up by 20, 24 points in the third quarter. That's their brand. I don't think they'll ever escape from it. And unfortunately, it was to a team that's also shitty, the Cowboys. They lost 40-39 on a crazy, well-executed onside kick by the Dallas Cowboys, which I don't know, Josh, if you watched it, but we watched it, Jake, right? And that was just a crazy onside kick. And what was the game? We've watched, I think we've seen like 3 or 4 extremely well-executed onside kicks this year, both in one in the NFL, and I think the other one was in college football. Maybe both of them were in college. The other 2 were in college football. But we've seen some insanely well executed onside kicks this year. But the Atlanta Falcons, boy, they just can't get out of their own way. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, the game was crazy. The onside kick is inexcusable. How do you stand there and just let the ball like you can jump on the ball, like the receiving team can touch it, and like you can literally dive on the ball. The guy just let it roll. I don't know if he thought it wasn't going to go 10 yards or what was going through his mind. That's just inexcusable. My favorite video of the week came from there. It was a Cowboys fan that had a lucky egg, and he was rubbing the screen with his lucky egg the whole game, dude. And they came back and won, and he was like kissing it after.
I actually did not see that. I'm gonna have to find it. And
video of the week.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find that. Josh, did you watch that game?
I actually didn't. I think I was watching the end of the Bills-Dolphins game.
Oh, okay, okay.
One of my friends texted me and he goes, "What the fuck is up with the Falcons? Like, how are you that dumb?" And I'm like, "What just happened?" He goes, "Turn the channel." So I turned the channel, and the first thing that I could think of when I saw that onside kick is I'm like, "You call that special teams? I call that special needs right there." Like,
yeah,
how are you so dumb? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's tough.
You have 5 people around the ball. Yes, I get you don't want to give Dallas the chance. Well, if all 5 of you jump on it before they do, they got no chance of getting the ball. I get that the ball didn't look like it was going to go 10 yards. Then all of a sudden it took made a beeline for the 45-yard line. But come on, it was terrible.
Yeah, that game was terrible. And, just because I see it right here, I got the scores from last week pulled up. One of my picks, I mean, I gave out a lock of the week. It was probably the lock of the century. I mean, to have the LA Rams +1, I think they were +1.5. To have the LA Rams as a dog, they were +1 against the fucking Eagles. And they fucking smoked them 37-19. It was the easiest pick of my life. I mean, I've never seen a game so easy to pick. And I'm not even exaggerating. That's just fact. The Eagles suck. Carson Wentz, I don't know how they stick with him. They have no offensive line. I don't know what their defense is like, but it just obviously wasn't even good enough for the Rams they couldn't even handle the Rams. But Aaron Donald, I mean, he's just a beast. Even if he's not putting up numbers, he's drawing attention away so that other guys do. It's insane.
Yeah, gets double teamed every week. Is just a man amongst children.
He really is. He really is. Actually, I'll just go into it. My last week's picks from the NFL. I had Rams +1, which hit, and I had the Bills -5.5, which didn't hit. And Josh, you can fucking speak on that Bills game. I actually didn't get to watch most of it just because don't get it out here in Oklahoma. I only caught some highlights as they were showing it. But yeah, touch on that Bills game real quick.
So the game started, and the Bills, they looked unstoppable. They took a big lead early, and then all of a sudden, I think it was a lightning delay happened. And after that lightning delay, I think it was like 17-7 or 21-7 when that lightning delay happened. And then all of a sudden, the Dolphins just came storming back and took a 28-24 lead. And I was with my mother, and she's a Bills fan. And all of a sudden, I'm like, huh? She's like, what in the hell is happening? How are we letting the Dolphins offense just trample us? It was absolutely abysmal. It was almost like the Cowboys-Falcons game version 2, but the Bills ended up still winning that game. It was, and Josh Allen.
I think Josh Allen
made some beautiful throws.
Well, I think Josh Allen is probably one of the best young quarterbacks. Probably one of the best quarterbacks. He's definitely top. He's got to be top 10 in the league this year. In terms of like last year's numbers and this year's put together and like his projection, I would say he's got to be top 10 quarterback in the league. Definitely one of the top young guys. Obviously, I think it would go Mahomes, Jackson.
Wilson.
No, Wilson's not young anymore. He's been in the league since.
I'm sorry.
I would say young. I would say young guys. The guys that have been in it only a couple years, and I would say it would go Mahomes, Jackson, Allen.
Do you see Gardner Minshew's high school picture with him and the cheerleaders?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there was a picture that came out this week, and it was Gardner Minshew, and he was sitting there with his trophy, and he was like laying down, and they had all the cheerleaders in the back. And it was
That's
like,
hilarious.
Dude was even a legend in high school.
Yeah, I mean, he is a legend now. I think who did they play this upcoming weekend? But he lost to the Titans last weekend. The Jags. They actually play tonight against the Dolphins, right? So they do play tonight, Thursday night game against the Dolphins. I don't know about the Dolphins. I think they're going to have to make a choice here pretty soon on benching Fitzmagic and bringing in Tua. I don't know if it's because Tua's hurt that they're not playing him. I don't know if it's because they're trying to give him some time to, get the NFL speed under his belt. They didn't have any preseason, so maybe they're using the first couple of weeks for that reason. But you obviously, we saw success in a similar fashion with the Chargers out there in LA, where Tyrod Taylor got, he in the pregame, 10 minutes before kickoff, he gets hurt because reportedly, this is reports from, wherever I saw it on ESPN, that the team doctor was giving him some sort of pain meds or whatever and poked him in the rib or in the lungs. So I don't know what's going on out there in terms of the medical staff and whatnot, but nonetheless, and we'll get off that. We'll just stick with football. Justin Herbert, they had to bring in Justin Herbert with 10 minutes to go before the game started, and he had a pretty damn good game in terms of first game ever against I would say a decent team in the Kansas City Chiefs. I would say they're pretty good. They were a pretty good team. So he had a pretty good game against them. So I don't see why the Dolphins can't try and do the same thing. Bring him in. And bring Tua in. I'm not even a Tua fan per se. I just think, why not give him the shot? You drafted him so high. Give him a chance. You're a shit team, so you're going to lose anyway. So you might as well give him a chance.
But also, speaking of young quarterbacks, one of my picks was the Bengals Browns, and Joe Burrow, for the second week in a row, had a great game, and they came up just short.
Yep. I said it. I think I tweeted it out in the beginning of that game, maybe at the start of that game. I think Joe Burrow is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Maybe not with the Bengals, probably not with the Bengals, but if he can survive his first contract with the Bengals and get out of there, or if they can actually rebuild to be something and protect him, no matter. I think as long as he has he's just got to get out of he's got to have some support. He can't just have 1.5 seconds to throw the ball every damn time. Like, you got to give him some protection. And if he does get that, I think he's a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback.
Yeah, it's a little different. The thing is, because a lot of people think like people on terrible teams that are great, like Devin Booker. Like, Devin Booker's in the same kind of scenario. Like, he'll never be considered the greatest or one of the greatest if he never leaves. But they're different things, because Joe Burrow has to rely on an offensive line to stay healthy, where Devin Booker can just drop 40 every night and just,
get his numbers.
Yeah, he can still be fine, but Burrow is one of those that it's like, eventually his day's coming. When they play the Rams or something and Aaron Donald's coming at you. Oh my gosh.
I actually hope they don't play the Rams, because I'm going to check their schedule, because I don't know. But Josh, go ahead and speak on maybe what's your thoughts on them or whatever.
Well,
the Bengals.
Well, honestly, Joe Burrow reminds me of
and Tua maybe too.
The same situation that Andrew Luck came into with the Colts. He had all the weapons in the world he could have wanted. Joe Burrow's got AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, much like the Colts had Reggie Wayne at the time. They got T.Y. Hilton. But the line is just absolutely abysmal. Myles Garrett could have gotten triple teamed, and I still think he would have gotten through all three of them in that game. Like, it was terrible. The Browns literally were sending 3 or 4 people in pressure and Burrow on every single drop back, and he had 61 of them. Like, you got to build that line. It was
absolutely. They have to get some sort of protection for him.
You saw Andrew Luck's career get cut short, and that hurts as a Colts fan, but.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, what are your thoughts on the Colts? Because you guys have Phillip Rivers out there, but how long are you going to have Phillip Rivers? But do you want to win with him?
Well, here's my thing. The Colts, historically, everyone laughed at us losing to the Jaguars. The Colts have lost their last 7 season openers. haven't won in Jacksonville in 5 years, so I'm kind of giving that a pass right now. And if you watch what we did against the Vikings, yeah, that's more of what I expect. Kirk Cousins was 6 of 20 at one point in that game with 3 turnovers, and he was basically a 12th defender out in the field. Like, he was terrible. But was he terrible, or was it so much the Colts were actually playing really good defense? Jonathan Taylor looked good. I think the Colts legitimately have a chance.
I forgot you guys got Jonathan Taylor. I forget that.
Yeah, Marlon Mack tore his Achilles week 1. Jonathan Taylor steps in, 100 yards rushing in his first start.
I actually totally forgot that Jonathan Taylor was in the draft this year and that you guys got him because, I mean, really it's all about Clyde, the running back out of
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, him and J.K. Dobbins. I mean, those are the names I remember at least. I forgot about Jonathan Taylor, to be honest. And yeah, that is huge. But do the Colts, I mean, are you guys win now? I mean, are you guys in the win now mode?
I would assume so. I mean,
you guys are 1-1.
We're 1-1, but like I said, I'm kind of giving that Jacksonville a wash. If we can't win this week, I'm hanging the towel up. We're playing the Jets. They're terrible. If you look at stats, yeah.
41-50. You said that if they lose this week, they're done.
Well, if you look at the stat, like the Colts defense, it got a lot of trash for Minshew completing 19 of 20 passes, but a lot of those were. I'm going to blame Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator. You can't call 90% of their snaps to be zone defenses against a scrambling quarterback.
Yeah.
And all it takes is 2 or 3 seconds to find a hole open in the zone. And I mean, we were getting pressure, but Minshew has the ability to get out of that pressure, step up, find DJ Chark wide open in between zones. We started playing man coverage last week. We looked pretty good, even without one of our starting corners, but it's going to be interesting to see. We have 2 more injuries. We have Malik Hooker, tore his Achilles, done for the year. Paris Campbell has a PCL injury. I don't really know what's happening there. He's on IR, so he's out for probably half the season, knowing his luck, which is tough because he was out most of last year too. But I think that they legitimately have a chance to be something special. Statistically, right now, they're the best defense in football. That's something I haven't been able to say in my entire life. So
you know who statistically is the most efficient quarterback in football? Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill was the most efficient quarterback last year. And Jake, you're welcome for saying that. He is the Tannehill hater. And I don't know why, but one day we were doing a Jake and Bake episode. And before one of our guests was on, Preston Poole, Jake was slandering Ryan Tannehill. And then during the show, Preston Poole slandered him too. And I just felt like he needed some support. And so I support Ryan Tannehill. We're Ryan Tannehill podcast. We're Ryan Tannehill show. And Jake doesn't really believe what he says about him.
Dude, Ryan Tannehill is a garbage can.
All right. Well, we're just moving on. We're moving on. The people that can handle the pressure is a guy by the name of, and he's only 20 years old, a guy by the name of Tyler Harrow for the Miami Heat. Because talk about a fucking basketball player. Last night, Wednesday, the 23rd, they played against Boston Celtics. I think it was game 4 for the Heat. The Heat ended up winning to go up 3-1. Talk about a player that handles himself, handles the pressure, and is gonna be a good fucking player in the league for a long time to come, as long as he stays healthy. Tyler Harrow, I mean, he dropped 37 points.
Yeah, 37. He's the youngest to ever do it. Well,
second youngest to have a 35 or 30 plus point game in the playoffs behind Magic Johnson. Yeah, so I mean, like that. I mean, it was an insane game. The Heat are looking like legit contenders. They're
11-2 in the playoffs. 11-2. That's insane.
I just don't know. How do they match up against the Lakers? Because the Lakers are about to play Game 3 tonight against the Denver Nuggets. They'll be going up 3-1, which is a scary lead to have against the Denver Nuggets during these playoffs. They're 2 and they are undefeated so far against elimination games. So it's not fun to go up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets, but I think the Lakers will be fine. Let's just assume they will be fine. The Lakers make the finals and they play the Heat. I mean, do they match? What's that matchup like? I mean, I think it kind of leans Heat in the front in the backcourt, but it leans Lakers everywhere else. You know?
Yeah, I mean, even in the backcourt, the Heat just.
If we had Avery Bradley, it'd be different.
Two
Because
total different styles of basketball. I think what makes the Heat so good and what makes them work so well is they don't have that one guy that's just a superstar on their team that stands out. Like, they all play so well together. Like, they don't care how many minutes they play, how many, like, they don't care about passing the ball. Like, they'll do whatever they need to do to get wins, and they have no problem doing it, where superstars want to hog the ball and they want to take all the shots. Like, the Heat just don't have a lot of those guys. Like, obviously I think Jimmy Butler down the stretch at
even on Jimmy Butler, they asked him somewhat like, what's your role with this team? And he's like, hey, if I don't need to shoot the buckets in the first 3 quarters, that's fine. But they know that he's a clutch player, and he's like, but what as he's basically saying, and this is how I took it: as long as you guys keep it close in the 4th quarter, I'll fucking get the buckets down. I'll knock the high pressure shots down. But you know what? Everyone's doing that. They're all doing that. They're all Bam's able to do it, and he might be hurt. He hurt his wrist last night, so we gotta watch out for that. That could be a huge loss if they make the finals. But Tyler Herro's able to make shots. Gorgon Dragic is able to make shots. I mean, that whole team, that whole squad down there is just able to make buckets. Not just Jimmy, but Jimmy basically understands that, like, he doesn't need to drop 45 points a game because he might get all the looks in the 4th quarter because they need someone that is poised and can take those high pressure shots and also just take pressure off the defenders.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is defense is Jimmy Butler and Andre Iguodala coming in, playing huge defense against that backcourt of Boston, and they making them struggle. Like, Jason Tatum didn't have a point until halftime,
after halftime, he had 26, 25 points. So he did go off, but they did lock him down the whole first half. He was 0-6, field goals 0-4 from 3 with no points. I think only 3 or 4 rebounds and only a couple assists. Like, he did not have a good first half.
I mean,
Kemba's terrible.
Yeah, the Celtics are struggling and the Heat are on fire is basically the story of what's going on there. I think it's hard to say. I think the Celtics are a better team, barely. But, if you're playing bad and they're playing good, like, you're just going to get beat. And I think the real crazy story is they are only one of 2 5 seeds to ever make the Eastern Conference Finals, and they will be the only team in history of basketball to be a 5 seed and make the finals.
Are they the 5 seed or the 6 seed, or they are the 5 seed? Okay. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter if they're one of those 2. But yeah, I mean, it is crazy. Josh, what are your thoughts on the NBA right now?
If you were to look at the NBA right now, one man looks like he is on a mission to put up, and that's Jimmy Butler. That dude has hit every clutch shot that he's taken. It's just insane. He plays lockdown defense. Much like we were saying with Aaron Donald looks like a man amongst boys. Jimmy Butler looks like a man amongst boys in the NBA right now. He just looks laser focused. He enjoys being around his teammates, unlike in Minnesota and Philadelphia. He enjoys his team. Exactly. Yeah, that's a while ago, but he actually enjoys being around his teammates. He trusts his teammates for once, and this Heat team is dangerous. And here's the thing: when assuming they make the finals, and assuming it's the Lakers that they get, it'll be interesting. LeBron James has not had a real matchup to defend him yet this postseason. But you got Jeremy Grant right now. Not taking much against Jeremy Grant, but he is not Jimmy Butler. Who do you have in the Rockets series? Exactly. Who do you have against the Trailblazers? Carmelo? Same thing with Anthony Davis is going to get Bam Adebayo. Jokic, one of the best offensive centers, if not the best offensive center. He is a joke on defense, no pun intended. But it's going to be the first time this postseason that the Lakers are 2 stars are really going to have legit defense, and they're going to need someone else to step up. And who is that going to be on the Lakers?
Rajon Rondo. KCP. No, I don't know. I don't know. I think. I mean, obviously, I don't think I have to be the one to say it. LeBron James is going to be LeBron James. Anthony Davis is going to be Anthony Davis. It's just, are they going to be hold them off? Are they going to be able to hold them off just enough? Just enough. Jimmy Buckets and Bam and those guys, because you're not going to fully. You're just not going to lock down LeBron James. Those 2 things they usually go in sentences only like this: LeBron James is locked down, or LeBron James has locked it down. You can't lock him down. He does the locking down. He locks the key, throws it out, or locks the lock. He does it. I mean, are you going to be able to limit him and hold it to that 1-2 point game down the stretch? Because they're not losing by 15, 20 points. The Lakers, it's just not going to happen in the finals. You're just not going to be able to do it. So let's
take the thing about LeBron real quick.
Yeah.
I think, dude, like when you watch it and you see him play, he almost starts to do stuff. And then if he gets frustrated and things aren't kind of going his way, he kind of, does a couple of weird things that happens. But dude, when things are clicking, and I just don't think LeBron has just given 110%. Like he hasn't like hit that extra gear quite yet. Like when he starts making, like there was, I think, one game against the last team they played, where he had like 5 blocks. Like when you start seeing those block numbers come up, and like the thing is, dude, is when LeBron scores 20 or 30 points, they're unstoppable. Like there's just no way to stop that offense. When LeBron's driving and getting all those buckets, and then he can start dishing to AD, and then the bench starts getting involved, and Caruso and KCP
and AD knocked down that insane 3 the other night to win the game. I mean, that was an insane splash.
One of the main problems with the Nuggets is like Jokic plays so great, but when you're the Lakers and you can just sit there and rotate Howard and McGee and Anthony Davis or whoever, you can just sit there and rotate constantly, putting all these pressures on Jokic. It's like, that front court for the Lakers is serious. And
yeah, it is.
The bench is stacked, and
it absolutely is. And like I said, I think we said it last week before, or just as the Heat series was getting started in the Lakers series. I think I predicted the Heat in 7 or 6. But I really do. I think it's going to be Lakers Heat in the finals, with the Lakers winning that. But let's just get to this weekend's picks. So I'll go first. Let's do our NFL picks. Let's just go through all our picks. So I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Denver Broncos, Jake. Tampa Bay's -6. I'll take Tampa Bay -6. You guys don't have a quarterback right now. Blake Bortles is there, but who knows if he starts? He just got signed early this week. So we don't really know, is he up to date on that offense yet? I mean, he's one of the most he is the BOAT. He's one of the most prolific quarterbacks in NFL history. And so he should be able to come in and mesh real well. But let's just take Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucs at -6 on that. I'm going to take, and this is a little shot at one of someone I know, but I'm going to take the Las Vegas Raiders +5.5 against Cam Newton and the New England Patriots. I'm going to take Vegas 5.5, +5.5. And then going into the college football, I'm going to take Auburn at -7.5 against Kentucky. I wanted to take Kentucky to cover that, but I have done this before with Auburn, and they usually prove me wrong early in the season. So I'm just going to actually go the reverse route, take Auburn, and if Auburn loses, then yay, it's kind of a win-win. I'm going to skip my second college football pick until the end of my picks. The Lakers -6 against Denver tonight. So that is tonight. That's a Thursday night game. I will be putting this pick out on Twitter just so that if people don't catch this show until the weekend or something, they'll still be able to go find that pick if they want to check me on that. And so I'm taking Lakers -6. It says at Denver, but like they're in the bubble, so that doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to take Dallas Stars Friday night +160 against Tampa Bay. They got to make this series tied up again. If they go down 3-1, it's going to be hard to put. It's going to be hard for Tampa Bay to lose that series, or Dallas come back down 3-1. So I'm going to take Dallas Stars at +160 to bring that series to 2. And then my last college football pick, I am going to. You might be happy about this. One of you might be happy about this. One of you might not be, or both of you might not be. I'm going to take number 15, Oklahoma State -7 at home against West Virginia.
Keep sleeping.
Kind of as a, something to root for. But also, I do think Oklahoma State's going to start clicking. Whether Sanders comes back in, if he comes back in, that leaves Chuba to go get a little bit more open, hopefully. And if they stick with Shane Illingworth, then I think that does the same thing, because I think they'll be able to get the passing game down. So I do think Oklahoma State will be able to cover that. But Jake, you might not like that because sometimes I do have a little bit of a reverse jinx, but I'm not going to say anything about it. Maybe if we go to the game, while we're at the game, I'll cheer. Or while I'm watching the game, I'll cheer for them. But I think Oklahoma State has a good chance of covering that. So yeah, Tampa Bay Buccaneers -6, Las Vegas Raiders +5.5, Oklahoma State -7 at home, Auburn -7.5 at home against Kentucky, LA Lakers -6, and Dallas Stars on the ice at +160. Josh, I'm going to send it to you. You go ahead, and then we'll finish out with Jake on his picks.
All right. So I got a questionable one to start with. I have Mississippi State +16.5 against the reigning national champions in LSU.
I actually was going to take them. But
LSU has lost
Mississippi State.
Virtually everyone. The only notable person on offense that they really have coming back is Terrence Marshall. Okay, Mississippi State's got a decent defense. Now look at the defense. The only notable thing that they really have on defense, Derek Stingley. I like the more experienced Mississippi State team with, I believe they got KJ Costello in as a transfer quarterback. They have a very underrated running back in Kylan Hill. I like them. I think LSU's going to win the game, but I 3 scores is asking a lot of a very inexperienced team. The next pick I have is Army +13.5 against Cincinnati. If you looked at Cincinnati's defense last week against Austin Peay, they gave up 140 yards to Austin Peay on the ground. It's Austin Peay. It's not Army, who is one of the best, if not the best, rushing offense in football. Cincinnati has played Navy 4 times since being in the American. They're 1-3. Last year they did win 42-0, but Navy was. But no, it wasn't last year. I think it was 2 years ago that they won 42-0. So I like Miami. 3 scores against that ground control Army's going to be pretty tough, I think, for Cincinnati. The next pick is actually my lock. The U is back to me. Miami -11.5 against Florida State. This Florida State team did just lose 16-13 to Georgia Tech, who just lost to 28 to UCF. And this Miami team just beat a ranked opponent on the road in front of fans in Louisville by 13. Like, how are they only? The line opened at 10? I actually have money on it at 10. Why is the line so close? Florida State's offensive line is pretty terrible. Quincy Roche, Jalen Phillips of Miami, I think, are going to eat up. It would be even scarier if they had Gregory Rousseau, but I like Miami -11. I think it was just -11. The Titans, I have a -2.5 going against the Vikings. This is a tough one because I think the Vikings are in a very must-win situation here, but their defense is just terrible. You made Phillip Rivers look like a god. You made Aaron Rodgers look like, he has looked like the MVP of the league, but he looked incredible against them. I think that Vikings defense is going to get shredded by your boy Tannehill over there, Jake, and Derrick Henry's going to run all over him. The other pick I have is the Bills -2 against the Rams. I think the Rams are a good team, but I think they've also played 2 of the worst defenses in football in the Cowboys and Eagles. Now you have to deal with the Bills. So if they get Tremaine Edmonds back, that's a really good defense. And then the other pick I have is Monday Night Football. I got the Ravens -3.5 against the Chiefs.
Oh,
Ravens
okay. I didn't even want to touch that game. That's going to be a great game. I don't know which way that's going to go. I think that's going to be great.
I think that the Ravens can stop the Chiefs more than the Chiefs. I don't even know if the Chiefs are going to be able to stop Lamar. They struggled with Herbert. Not taking anything away from Herbert, but Lamar is the MVP for a reason.
Very true.
Lamar's the MVP for a reason. That offensive line is amazing.
J.K. Dobbins. Don't forget that. Put some respect on his name. J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, I actually was.
Hill.
Hey, watch it over there. We don't need to preach about.
Hey, they have Justice Hill too.
Yeah. J.K. Dobbins is the star on that team. I almost did take that Packers Saints game. I wanted to mention on this. We didn't really get into too much NFL. The Saints. I don't know. I think Drew Brees is getting old. I don't think that's a hot take either. I don't think they're going to be able to cover that 3-point spread. They're actually favored by 3 points, which is insane. I think Packers are still pretty decent. They're 2-0, obviously. I I think Packers take that game, but I'm not taking that game as a pick. Jake, you might, maybe you aren't, but hit us with your picks. I don't think you said you had much, right?
I have the usual. I do about 5 picks a week. We'll go through the obvious ones first. I took the Lakers -6 versus the Nuggets. That's kind of a, non-controversial pick. I'm the opposite. I took the Chiefs plus 3.5 versus Ravens because I kind of like picking those game day games, those big games of the week.
I thought you were about to say you took the opposite of the West Virginia pick I had, and you were going to go with West Virginia. You almost surprised me there. Seeing as how you're not a real Oklahoma State fan.
I'll get to that. So I'm taking the Washington R-Words +7 versus the Browns because that game's just going to be.
I actually almost took them too. They're +7. Yeah, I almost took them.
The Browns are just not looking good.
No, not at all.
My really wild card pick is I'm taking Houston Baptist +23.5 versus Louisiana Tech. Houston Baptist started out the season playing Texas Tech. They almost won that game against Texas Tech. I
feel like this might be a slight jab to one of my buddies that's a Texas Tech fan, and he wasn't too happy that they didn't blow Houston Baptist
a compliment
out of the water.
to him. I'm saying Houston Baptist is better than people think that they are. We'll play it that way, and my main one is I'm also taking Army +13.5 for Cincinnati. Army every year in, year out, always gives a top 25 team struggles. They did it to Michigan. They did it to OU. They did it to really good blue blood powerhouse teams.
Let me flip this on you.
Cincinnati's good, but I don't see that happening.
Let me flip this on you. You say they give a top 25 team struggle at least once a year. They are a top 25 team. What if they give themselves a struggle? Huh? You ever thought about that? I think they're actually going to do that.
Making that point is the reason why I will not have Oklahoma State, West Virginia. I will not pick that game because I have not bet on Oklahoma State game since 2013. And the game that changed everything was West Virginia. It was West Virginia 2013. We had Clint Shelf. We went 10-2 that year. We lost to OU and West Virginia. We lost to West Virginia on the road. It's one of the worst games I've ever seen us play. I bet on OSU to cover that game. We should have won that game, and it drove me so insane that I vowed from that day on I will never bet on another Oklahoma State game for the rest of my life.
I believe that was back in the old Clint Trickett days of West Virginia, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Clint Trickett beat us. And
all right.
Trickett, Kevin White.
All right. Well, that was the Jake and Bake Show. You just heard our picks. Be sure to follow us. Follow me on Twitter at The Bake Is Here, Jake at Jake Cart, and at Josh_Stevens 13 13, right? 13. So be sure to follow us and at Jake and Bake Show on Twitter. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching here on YouTube. And if you're just listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, I don't think it goes to Apple Podcasts actually for some reason. So on Spotify, if you're on Spotify, give it a follow or subscribe to it and download it. However you want to do it. It all helps. It all means something to us. And it really does help progress the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This was the Jake and Bake Show. Josh, it was great to have you on. We'll be be having some guests on here more often, hopefully, and maybe you'll be back on maybe later in the season. We'll see what West Virginia is up to, whether they have beaten or not beaten Oklahoma State. I don't think they will. I took Oklahoma State +7. Someone's got to have some balls in this game.
I don't think we'll lose either, but I'm not picking.
Yeah.
I don't bet on my own team. I refuse to do it.
Yeah.
I'd pick Oklahoma State to win.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. I might have to clip that. But thanks for watching. Like I said, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, all that nonsense. Peace. See ya.